Well, congratulations, Zelda. I think I just got an email from you. That's fantastic. So kudos on your sixth testing victory. Let me get started here. Greetings and salutations, test takers. This is Dean Tenney coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. If you are new to our live stream Q&A, we always start with a little debrief. And so I'll share that with you shortly. But in the meantime, tell us what series your exam you're taking and where you're joining us from. If you do have a question, it helps if you put SIE or S7 followed by your questions. I can pick it out of the chat. Feel free to chat with other people in the community. We have victorious test takers. Zelda just took and passed the 6. I would warn you that 65 is going to be a kind of a beast compared to your 6, but let's wait till we get there, right? And I would tell you that any work you do on your SIE pays big dividends on your Series 6 or 7, whatever the case will be. All right, my wingman made it. I wasn't sure. I told Brian, Brian is not, this is not his commitment, even though he joins us more often than not. So, I always catch and release when he says he may not make it. Hey, it's okay. Even though I like to have him around for sure. All right, so debrief. I just had a hot debrief. I call hot debrief something that comes, the guy, I wish he would sit down and send me an email, but he called me in the car right after he passed. This is for his 66. I was kind of surprised about some things. I wasn't surprised at all that he got balance sheet calculations. We know that. I wasn't surprised at all that he got asked about dollar cost averaging and the difference between open and closed end. I was surprised that he got asked what gives the better protection on a stock position between a higher strike put and a lower strike put. And the higher strike put would give him better protection. He got a universal life question. On Series 7 universal life questions, you can't show somebody more than 12%, and you got to give them one period with a 0. That is definitely on the Series 7. And what he got was that it could lapse to insufficient cash value. Nothing really out of the ordinary, buy stops and sell stops and that kind of thing. So let me go to the comments, take care of this. At the end of our live stream, we do our drawing for a 30-minute coaching call. It's not this Thursday, it's the following Thursday. If you win it, gives you time to think about what you'd like to cover in that. We record and share it. If you don't need it, you can assign it to someone else. I think C. Hill won last week. You can't win 2 weeks in a row. So, we want to mix it up and help some other people. In terms of the channel itself, it's a buffet. You find what you like. If you're going to be looking for a particular video, there's like 400 videos there. So that's a needle in a haystack. So what you should do is go to your series exam playlist, or it's SIE or 65 or 7, and then queue that up, and then you'll see all the videos in suggested watch order. Please, suggested watch order. So don't call me and say, Dean, what are the top 5? They're in suggested watch orders. That means the top 5 would be the first 5 that you find there. But again, take what speaks to you. In terms of paid supplements, so the best free supplement is my YouTube channel. But the best paid supplements is the guy you see on the other screen there, the Test Geek himself. That's Brian Lee, managing member, Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. He's kind enough to give you as viewers a 20% discount on his content. All in on his video courses. It's a whole video course. It comes with quick notes and a practice file. I love the practice file. I'm a huge fan of Brian's practice files. Anyways, you get all that, I think, with the discount for about $100, and it's really a worthy investment. You also could get a Kaplan QBank. Highly recommend that. And if you want a Kaplan QBank and the quick sheets, I think Brian's quick notes are a little better than quick sheets, but they're laminated. They're kind of nice, about $20. QBank's about $60, and my discount code there is Guru10 at checkout. We are doing some other things tomorrow. Tomorrow I have a course on advanced option strategies. There are things you're held accountable for to know about spreads and straddles, and I'll be doing that. That's $60. There's still a couple of spots left on that. Let me just show you what that looks like. Those are what you need to be able to do in terms of a spread. And we'll be doing that. Now, if you join me for a class, I'll put that up there, the way to join me for a class. Let me get rid rid of that. If you want to join me for a class, you can do so there, and I'll show you the class and how you register and all that kind of good stuff. You get free repeats. I plan on doing class every 6 weeks. And you also get free office hours. If you not free unless you bought something, tutoring or class or something. I see Erica's already signed up for that. I have Beth signed up for that initial office hour. And you also don't have caps that apply. So for example, tonight's overtime session, there are no slots available. But if you are somebody who is paid for tutoring or a class, the cap does not apply to you. I'll simply overwrite it and put you into whatever is capped out. So you'll never have a capped out situation, basically. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all the housekeeping. So let's get into our comments here. Let me get rid of that. Some good debrief from Zelda's biggest fan. He passed the 66. All right. Woohoo. That's not surprising. The manual tenure, I think that's important, right? Because that could be good news or bad news depending on the fund's performance. So if I'm trying to sell you a mutual fund, you say, well, Dean, the 5-10 years looks pretty bad. I go, well, that was the old guy. This is the new guy. Or I could say, the opposite, right? That guy didn't, this guy has a proven track record in good times and bad. And, then I better be able to say right after that, past performance is not indicative of future results. But yeah, tenure shows up. That's great debrief. Thank you so much. That is fantastic debrief. 65 from Georgia, Clyde. All right. Woohoo. All right, Andrew. North Carolina, Vanguard, Bank of America. Who would have thought that Charlotte is such a hotbed for major financial institutions? Testamentary. I've had, Brian, I don't know your thoughts on this. I've had people tell me on debrief, they get a question about the will being established, a testamentary trust through a will. Have you?
Yeah, I have it on my practice final.
Do you? There you go. I tell you, the guy is spot on. I always tell people when they get Brian's practice final, the PDF to print it out, and what I call it a poor man's flashcard. And I tell everybody, just had a guy, I told the guy who was in the car yesterday passed, I tell him to read Brian's practice final, the questions and the answers the night before and morning of, and as well as his rationale. So get your kind of brain flowing in that. I kind of think of Brian's PDF of his practice final, kind of like my series 65 in 60 minutes kind of a thing, how to get you in the flow. Again, great debrief. Well, I don't think they would ask you to do the coefficient, but to recognize it, right? That we're looking for negative correlation. And it's either going to be, 1 would be perfect correlation, -1 would be negative correlation. And most of the time, what people see on their exam is what would provide negative correlation and therefore reduce volatility. That's pretty standard kind of a question. You want to comment on that, Brian?
There's a couple of questions on correlation coefficient. The old one used to be a table of different portfolios, and they gave all kinds of statistics. One of like 8 columns is the correlation coefficient, and the one that's most negative is the most diversified.
And I know you guys are going to get tired. You're going to think that my live streams are a paid commercial for my buddy Brian, but he has that exact table. I think is question number 1. Don't you in your practice final?
That one is about standard deviation.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I recall you had something like that.
And then the other question from correlation is basically a definition.
Yeah. If you got strong market, for sure, an answer. Remember, strong market and the efficient market hypothesis, that means nothing works. So you may as well buy an index fund. Advisor, rep, and the owner of the firm. Well, Clyde, the thing to remember is we have what are called natural persons and unnatural persons. So Brian, you see Brian there on the other screen. He's a natural person. He's a living, breathing human being. Exam Geek Test Prep LLC is not a natural person. That is a non-natural person. It's not a living, breathing human being. Let's say that Brian is the sole managing member of Test Geek. So that is a separate entity from Brian himself, the same as the firm. So Clyde, it would be important to know how we're organizing our firm on Form ADV Part 1. Are we going to be a sole proprietorship? Are we going to be an LLC? Are we going to be a partnership, a subchapter S? This is very testable. And that would be the ownership structure. And that's not an individual. The investment advisory firm is not an individual. It's not a living, breathing human being. Now, the person who controls that entity could be, in terms of a shareholder or managing partner, or whatever the case may be. And the investment advisor rep is always, Clyde, always a natural person, a living, breathing human being. I can't tell you, Clyde, how many over the years of my career people want to have me cut a check as an IAR to an LLC or some entity that isn't them. And I say, can't be done. You know, your LLC isn't an investment advisor rep. You, the natural person, are the rep. Brian's got a nice picture there. Let me give him some board space here.
I don't know how nice it is, but it's a pretty simple one. Exactly what Dean was saying. The IA is the firm. The IAR is the individual.
Yeah. So keep them separate. By the way, Clyde, I would tell you the bigger deal, by the way, is to make sure that you're reading the question carefully. What I mean by that is, you know, are they asking about broker dealer? Are they asking about investment advisory firm? If so, federal or state? Are they asking about an agent of a broker dealer? Are they asking about an investment advisor rep? So, boy, you want to really read that question. I always say that 63, 65, 66 on the regulatory side is not a difficult exam if you can figure out what you're being asked. Now, I would stipulate that can be a real challenge. And then you got to be able to kind of read the answer set that are offered to you and figure that out too. So again, every debrief is different. That's really surprising. I just told you, I just did a debrief just yesterday, and the guy got a buy stop and a sell stop. So please remember that every draw is different. So as I always say, I'm dreaming for you guys a dream draw. Everything you studied shows up and you go, man, I don't know what the big deal was. But you got to be prepared for a face of death draw. You know, you got to be able to take down any kind of a draw that you get in terms of the exam. Hello, Jackie. Yeah, that's again, different debrief. The guy I talked to yesterday said he had a handful. You had one. Test prep vendors go total overkill on multiples of multiples. So good news or bad news, if you don't like multiples of multiples, good news, there's not more than a handful. And if you like them, well, oh well, there's not more than a handful. So, well, the officer can be a rep, you know. More often than not, the managing member is going to be an investment advisor or rep as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be true. And then remember, you get questions based on context about whether that person is a silent partner or not, Clyde. But I would think you could assume that the officer of the investment advisory firm has a 65 or, the equivalent 766. Your thoughts, Brian, on that one?
Yeah. And I think what mostly they're asking about officers, directors, owners automatically registered as IARs.
Yeah. Because of the equivalent of the Form ADV is equivalent of what you'd fill out in terms of a U4. The other thing I would do, Clyde, is worry not so much about that, but change in control, meaning that if this is a managing member and they sell their practice or something, or there's a change in control, remember they're very testable. If I hire, the investment advisor firm and it changes control, you have to get my permission to assign that investment advisory contract. Third time. All right, Philly Dragon, let's get it. Could you use any muni bond go-to tips? I don't have a whole lot of muni bond tips. I think that's kind of a slog. I would tell you that what I would suggest, Philly, here's one thing I would suggest. Take a sheet of paper, fold it in half, and on one side, go through your notes and put all the terms associated with GO bonds. Yeah. And on the other side, all the terms associated with revenue bonds. Because a big part of the muni bond component, and there are lots of muni bond questions, is distinguishing between GOs and revenues. They love to say all the following are associated with GOs except, or all the following associated with revenues except. So that would be one suggestion I would have for you. And then make sure you're solid on the documents, like the official statement, the trust indenture, the bond buyer, the notice of sale. So I have actually 3 videos in the playlist on munis. I have underwriting munis. I have the content outline explicated, and I have, what else? There's one more, a generic one. I also don't know, Philly Dragon, when you're testing, but tomorrow is my advanced options class. The following Wednesday is my muni bond class. And so that'll be 60 minutes. And I think I'm charging, I don't know what I'm charging. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is saying something about our chat maybe not be working from LinkedIn. So everyone needs a 65. Well, Clyde, you should never go with the everyone. Those broad terms like that. For test purposes, I feel comfortable saying yes. What would you say, Brian? For test purposes, could we assume that everybody in an investment advisory firm? Or are we going to get into the silent partner thing?
No, it's not silent partner. There are some administrative folks that do not need a 65.
Oh, there we go. I forgot about that. The phraseology there, Clyde, is solely clerical in nature. They'll give you some pivot words in that question. Receptionist, somebody who's not, making recommendations.
That's right.
So you can't expect a question like that. Can we do an accrued interest? I don't know. I'll defer to Brian if he wants to show you one on the board. Are you in the overtime session? I can show it to you there. It's more of a test prep vendor thing than the actual exam. I haven't had anybody on debrief tell me in a long time they've had to calculate accrued interest. On SIE and 7, I would know Uniform Practice Code, which standardizes practices within the securities industry. I would definitely know that buyers pay sellers the dollar amount of the accrued interest, calculated from the last time it paid interest up to, but not including settlement. In terms of counting the days, I'm not so sure. What do you think, Brian? You want me to do that in the overtime session, or you want to show her on the board?
I think it's the simple, 3360 for.
Yeah, make sure you know that. T+2.
Yeah, and actual days for govies. I'm not hearing any calculation for accrued interest.
I haven't heard it in years. So the test prep vendors, as we said, they like that. They don't ever want to cull their data bank. If you're in the overtime session, I did 3 or 4 of those last time. I'm more than happy to open up the whiteboard. I'm not sure if you're in the session. You should be. If you're not, you can override it because you actually have purchased products and services.
Yeah, I still have it in my outline. I still have it in the video, the accrued interest calculation. I still have it there.
Yeah, they're in suggested watch order, Shayna. So they're in suggested watch order. It's a buffet, though. Take what you like, leave what you don't. And then the playlists themselves are in suggested watch order as well. The Series 7 is the only exam where I have more than one playlist. I have 5. There's actually 6, but I cut it down to 5. And those are in suggested watch order as well. Marcel, I missed you. Oh, I thought you were here this weekend. I sent you an email inviting you over to my place for adult beverage and a stogie. Did I have the weekends messed up? I thought that was this weekend. I apologize if I'm off on the weekends. Well, Nico, it's really important because suitability comes from the products. So, the 4, I don't know what test you're taking, Nico. Let's assume it's the 7. By the way, even if it's the SIE, it's the biggest section. But on the 7, the 4 critical functions are: can you find a customer? Can you open the account? Can you make an investment? And then what happens after that? Those are the 4 critical functions. That third function, making the investment, is 91 questions on Series 7. It's 33 questions on the SIE. And so when you're going over those investment vehicles or products, by the way, Brian, I just talked to a guy who's missed his 65, and I loved his printout because you could see where he missed it. It was the investment vehicles.
Always. Yep.
I mean, he had like a 50% there.
Yep.
Now I have to cut him some slack. He was coming to the 65 with no investment background.
Right.
But when you're studying those investment vehicles like common stock, you always want to pay attention to your capital's at risk, an inflation hedge, might be able to keep purchasing power, preferred stock, fixed income. So the features and benefits of those products as you go along. So what's that pay most attention to? I don't feel comfortable saying most. Everything. So I don't know. Do you have a most in that category, Brian?
No.
I mean, but again, if you're just coming off your SIE, I wish everybody would pay attention to this, because if you really max out the SIE in terms of its 33 questions on products, you're going to be in such better shape, whether your next top off is a 6 or a 7. So, depending on where you're at in your testing journey, I just had a guy, and I want to send him negative vibes, but he passed his 6. He said his 63, 65 is next. I said, well, that 65 is, that's going to be a little bigger dragon than a 6. Oh, that hurts. Yeah, vocabulary. Well, I don't know if, it's Jackie, it's weird. Some people say it was spot on. Some people say it was different. I mean, depends on the draw. It depends on that. You might want to go to the glossary You might want to go to Quizlet. Quizlet has a lot of flashcards. I like making my own flashcards, but there's some people in Quizlet have their flashcards up there. Maybe that's what you want to do. But it is like learning a foreign language. I'm not sure which test you took, but they say when you dream the foreign language, that's when you know it. So I was just helping somebody today with a rights theoretical value of a right, and it didn't say one right to get an additional share. You kind of had to, figure out that in terms of the grammar and the language. So, that hurts. I know it hurts. March 22nd. Woohoo. So you got plenty of time. So time horizon is important, right? I always joke if there was only an Act 6, Scene 1, everybody on the stage would be alive. And it would be a comedy. It's tragedies are when time runs out and it's Act 5, Scene 5. I was just talking to a guy about a study plan today, and I said, listen, you want to give yourself plenty of time because, at some point the timeline collapses and you're not going to have time for remediation or, stuff like that. So give yourself, I think that's great. I think March 22nd is a good timeline. Calm is so important, Philly Dragon. Man, tough love in social media. I feel bad, but I had to put all caps. Stop. This person was getting themselves so worked up. And I said, the anxiety and the nervousness is not helpful. You got to be calm, cool, and collected or pretend that you are. You got to lighten up on she was he or she, I don't know, but they were down on themselves. They were scoring in the 70s. Like, what am I doing wrong? I go, man, quit your stinking thinking. That's that 70 is a good score. So that's really important. Psyche is important. I can't prove it, but confidence and psyche, is important. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, I don't have any tips. I could be a little more with tips when we know more about your situation, but I wouldn't know how to. There's no shortcuts that I can give you at this stage in your journey. So, Brian, you want to take a shot at your efficient market hypothesis 3 times?
How much time do you have?
I like to, Jack. I'll do it how I'll do it, and then I'll see what Brian wants to add to it. Jack, like to start with what I think is going to be the high probability test question, which is strong forms of efficient market hypothesis. Nothing works. So that's where I like to start. So I like to say, okay, if it's strong form, nothing works. Then I like to go back to the beginning and weak form and say, well, weak form guys like Mr. Buffett can exist because, he does interpretive analysis of, the balance sheet and the income statement. It's not the numbers, but the interpretation, and technical analysis wouldn't work. Now, more often than not, Jack, what you're going to get tested on is strong. Let me get Brian his board. Whoop, that's the wrong
I
one.
like to connect the characteristics, the criteria for each level of the hypothesis.
Okay.
What constitutes semi-weak? What constitutes strong? Semi-strong. What constitutes strong? What constitutes weak? Those criteria, I think, are highly testable.
You sound like a science teacher.
That's because I am.
I know. Brian's passed
20 years ago.
I know.
Again, and for purposes of time, these are cumulative. They build upon each other, price and volume, and then add to that public information, which is the financials of the corporation. If all of that information is known, then the hypothesis is said to be semi-strong, and very little, if any, research is going to help you outperform the market. If, again, you add to that private information known to insiders, then that's the strongest form. Nothing's going to work. No research. Close your eyes and throw a dart and pick.
Yeah, Jack, the other thing is in material non-public information works with semi-strong, right? So if I have, inside information, that's definitely on the 65 and 66.
Certainly is.
I've had people tell me they actually got more than one question on that.
Absolutely.
So, Cynthia, woohoo! I love it. Well, I don't know what the higher is, Cynthia. I like to see a 70% plus. So if you're in that 70% range, I would be happy. Past perfect. Oh my God. You can add even more points. I think you can add points to a Kaplan, but you can add even more points to past perfect. So just keep grinding. You gotta overstudy, overlearn so that you are, confident. You don't want to barely know this stuff. You want to keep working. So as I say, keep grinding and stay the course is what you should do. Now, if you're testing Friday, make sure you don't wear yourself out on Thursday. So, maybe Thursday, do some low key stuff. Manage your psyche this next week would be what I would tell you to do.
Dean, do you recommend FINRA's practice exam for the SIE?
Absolutely.
I do too.
Absolutely. So Cynthia, the FINRA, if you haven't done it already, you can watch me do it. I explicate it on my channel. You can also do it yourself. I wouldn't try and memorize it, but it's great. It's a great practice exam. You also have available on the channel in the SIE playlist. You have Brian's SIE Test Geek practice. You've got one from me. I did a reverse of the FINRA. So I took the FINRA answer sets from that exam and then made different questions using the same answer sets.
Cool.
That's there. There's 2 Kaplan SIE practice questions tests there. And there's also a 2 Mometrics SIE. So there's lots of practice tests to do. But Brian's right. That FINRA one, I think, is spot on. I like it. So
I do too.
Make sure you do it. It'd be a sin, as I say, angels weep for you if you have not done the FINRA SIE exam at some point before you go to take the real one. So SIE, Nico. Okay, so 33 questions for you, Nico, on understanding products. I think it makes sense, Nico, because remember, securities, industry, essential. Securities, industry, essential. What's the most essential thing to the securities industry? Securities. Right? Without securities, we wouldn't have an industry. So that is the biggest part of the exam itself, right? Oh, thanks, Marcel. I'm glad to hear that. I was kind of worried. I said, I wonder what happened because, I don't worry too much about you because you're in New Orleans, but, we do lose people in Vegas every now and again. So I thought, what happened? What happened? Yeah, I have a whole, again, playlist that does exactly that. It's function 3. I'm not teasing. I can tease when it's not funny, but somebody asked me, well, where's function 3? I said, it's after function 2 and before function 4. And you can find that in my playlist. It's called the Series 7 Content Outline. And I go through the entire thing, including all the functions, including function 3. It's the first Series 7 playlist. So if you go to my channel on the homepage, that's how you should always access stuff. It says, taking the Series 7, start here. And you hit the button, and that's what comes up as that playlist. If you're taking the SIE, it says, taking the SIE, start here. You hit the button, and the SIE thing comes up. Taking the 66, start here. So those are on the homepage. The other series playlists can be found in, there's another, what do you call it, a carousel that has all that stuff on it. I'm not sure what that means. Orange cover.
And orange.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. That hurts. That hurts. Well, pass-through, remember, there's only a couple things that have pass-through. You need to know pass-through, Nico, for REITs and mutual funds. I think it'd be recognition on the SIE is 90%. As long as they pass through 90% of their net investment income, the IRS is kind enough to say they'll tax what passes through to the shareholder and not to the REIT or the mutual fund. And then partnerships have a complete flow through, and I would definitely know that. So that's what we mean by double taxation. Double taxation means that the company, I'll just use Chevron as an example. Chevron makes money, pays taxes. Out of the earnings, I'm sorry, Brad, I always forget to get you back off here. It pays taxes. The board decides to pay a dividend. I get the dividend, I pay taxes. So that money has been taxed twice. Now, if the mutual funds own Chevron, Chevron makes money, pays taxes, pays a dividend to the mutual fund. And if we didn't have the pass-through, the mutual fund pay taxes, pay me a dividend, I pay taxes. That would be triple taxation. So, triple taxation, I helped somebody with a practice question, and they said subchapter N reduces what? And you had to come up with triple taxation. Whatever the investment company keeps, they're going to owe taxes on it. So that's what we now. SIE, I think that's an aim and shoot point and click kind of a question. Do you think anything will be on that on SIE, Brian?
The triple or double taxation?
Yeah.
It's a bit much for the SIE.
Yeah. And then the other, Nico, I would know is double tax-free would be muni bonds, right? If I am a resident of California and I buy a California municipal bond, I'm not going to pay state income tax and I'm not going to pay federal income tax. Well, everybody, either loves their test prep vendor or doesn't. I don't know what, I was telling Brian, the 24, we have a 24 Reddit community, and we have a Reddit community for the SIE and 7 and the 6. And that one is just, it's all over. People show up and they say, I love Kaplan. The next one is, I hate Kaplan. I love STC. I hate STC. Yeah. I love Past Perfect. I hate Past Perfect. So, at some point, I guess what I would tell you is the attitude you need to have is don't blame your test prep vendor. That doesn't do you any good to blame the test prep vendor. Also, it doesn't help you with whoever your accountability partner is. So if I'm your accountability partner and you come back and you missed your mark and you start blaming STC or Kaplan or Past Perfect, even though I agree Past Perfect, but or Exam FX, or it's just not a good spot to be. So what I would suggest, Nico, is think about supplements. You have my channel as a free supplement. Think about a paid supplement, whether it's Brian, whether it's the Kaplan Q Bank. So what I would say is if you are unhappy with your vendor, think about supplementing that with whatever's available to you. I know people's resources are different. So, I had a student one time, he came in, Nico, he had bought every test prep vendor's version of this exam. And I said, you realize that's just the same stuff sliced and diced differently. But, having a different, spin on it, so to speak, is a good thing. Nico, as I told you, Brian is a bridge. His teachable video series is the whole thing. And if you have the $100, that's a perfect kind of a bridge from that kind of a scenario. That and a Kaplan Q Bank, I think, are my two favorite paid supplements for folks. So. Well, Nathan, I would think the thing on 63 that's such a challenge is you don't have many performance opportunities. The Uniform Securities Act is the big thing there. The biggest part of that is don't lie, cheat, and steal. It's one of the few things I would say, Nathan, on almost every exam. I'm not a big believer. I told you I give this person a hard time. If you're in the live stream, I apologize. But I was giving her a very hard time because she thought she was learning by doing 4 practice tests a day. It's just ridiculous. You're not going to learn by doing 3 practice tests. The practice tests are to find out what you don't know.
Correct.
Do a diagnostic, get a mark to market. You need to be laying base knowledge. Now that I just said that, Nathan, the exception is the 63. I think you should just rifle through as many practice questions as possible. What would you add to that, Brian? Anything?
Persons, definition of persons, broker dealers, agents, IAs, and the ethics.
There you go.
That's 80% of the exam, right?
I don't know when you joined us, Nathan, for the live stream. Remember, we said very important that you understand this concept of natural persons versus unnatural persons, because if you don't, you can bog down in the grammar. So persons just means somebody who's can be held legally accountable. I would definitely know who cannot, minors, people now deceased, that kind of thing. But then there's unnatural persons as well. I always joke about Mitt Romney. He got in trouble with some of my progressive friends when he said, corporations are people too. What he really kind of meant to say is they are unnatural persons who have, rights and privileges just like other natural persons, right? Or my other one, Nathan, my progressive friend say, Stevie Cohen had a hedge fund called SAC Capital. And he said he would make a deal with the government that his SIC Capital would plead to a felony. But he certainly wasn't. So the difference is you can't throw an LLC into jail, right? So this would be, I joke about Brian Lee, Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. So the LLC takes the death penalty. Brian doesn't, right? So no, not at all, Brady. The test prep vendors in the old days, it used to be 2-3 hour sessions. It was a 6-hour exam, 250 questions. And the MSRB, Brady, wouldn't recognize the 7 unless there were 55 questions on munis. And that caused them to ask a lot of minutia muni questions at FINRA. When FINRA changed it over, they said to the MSRB, we ain't doing it.
Exactly.
We're not going to commit to X number of questions on munis. And therefore, a lot of that stuff like calculating mill rates and calculating debt service coverage went poof on the test. But as I mentioned, test prep vendors never want to cull their bank. They don't want to ever say they got less questions. So they leave them in. I call them legacy questions. Every test prep vendor has lots of legacy questions, particularly on munis as it's Series 7. So you know what comes next, Brady? That's why you want to use a bridge, whether it's my channel or Brian. So Brady, sometimes people will watch my Muni lecture videos. Oh, here's an example. I have one called All the Math Necessary on Series 7. keyword necessary. And then I'll get somebody send me an email telling me 4 formulas I've left off. And I said, well, I left them off because I don't think you're going to see them. And, you could spend hours trying to go down rabbit holes on things you may not see. You're not going to see that. So I saw a question regarding certain rules about if you're in the hospital and your spouse tells your FA to increase the amount of cash, it doesn't matter what story they tell you, unless she has third party or it's a joint account, no can do.
That's right.
So you don't take any instructions from third parties. The only exception would be in the context of that question, Nico, if the spouse, it's a joint tenant with rights or survivorship, a tenant account. If not, and she doesn't have trading authorization, I'm sorry, it doesn't work, right? I'd also know the difference in your next exam about durable power of attorneys. I had the guy on his debrief today, Brian, or yesterday on 66, said they tried to trick him about durable power of attorney being existing after your death. And no power of attorney, durable or not, exists after you're not here, right? So. Thank you. Well, I think I'm getting there, Shane. I mean, the people who don't think they're number one, they only beat me because they started a couple years for me. We are now at 1 million, coming up on 1.5 million views, and we're coming up on 15,000 subscribers. We're picking up 1,000 subscribers a month, which is pretty good because I don't ask people to subscribe or like things. I mean, I figure you either do or you don't. So, that's not kind of my MO. So yeah, I think so. I've been surprised, but as I always tell Brian, right, you're very popular with a price point of free. Free is a very popular price point. Well, closed in, Nico, you don't have to calculate the NAV, but you do need to know the closed in would be the only scenario in which it would be trading less than the NAV. So particularly on your SIE, but you need to know calculate once per business day. You need to know that. You need to know the NAV plus the sales charge equals the POP, the public offering price. I have a whole video, Nico, called Open versus Closed In. It's very testable on all exams. SIE, Series 7, 6, 65, 66. You're going to get tormented on the difference between open-end and closed-end funds. Closed-end funds trade supply and demand in the secondary market, and European options settle at expiration, where America's time means you can exercise anytime. Most of the SIE is recognition. And so make sure you know that. So, be able to do recognition style questions on the SIE. Brian's board there. There you go. So Brian put it on his board. The assets of the fund minus the expenses of the fund equals the net asset value. And then you divide that by the number of outstanding shares. Poof. Now on your 7, they might ask, what affects NAV, and it's the portfolio, the securities in the portfolio going up or down. Well, you can do that with Super Chat, Shana. So if you go to Super Chat, it'll let you donate. I mean, I don't ask for donations. I don't solicit them. But it's called Super Chat. And you just put $5 or $10 or whatever. I'm not a big fan of going back to questions. I think your flash response is your best response. I think you should model behavior of, like Jeopardy contestants or game show contestants. And you can tell the people are good test takers. They answer quickly. And when they're asked if that's their final answer, they say yes. Now, I would only change an answer or go back to an answer if in another question, 2 things are met. I know I got it wrong, and I know what the right answer is. Otherwise, I'd leave it alone. So the other thing about marking questions to review, now, if this was a paper question, paper exam, I'd probably be a little different. But the problem is it starts reminding you that questions back, and I think it's very distracting. So I'd be aim and shoot, point and click, deal with it once and move on. What do you think, Brian?
I don't know anyone who's changed more than 5 answers on a test and has passed.
Well, in fact, I know Brian does the same thing. It's kind of not how to ingratiate ourselves with people, but when somebody barely misses the mark, the first thing I ask them is, did you change answers?
Exactly. I do too.
And what's really, really, a misfortune is when they say they got like a 71 on the 7 and they tell me they changed like 3 or 4 answers. I can't prove it scientifically, but I think that's what it did them in. So the answer to your question is I do not believe in doing that. Brian, I think Brian's on the same page with me on that. Hello, Erica. I see, Erica, you signed up for the office hour. You now have a companion in that office hour. As I said, you get free office hours with me if you have paid for a class. And Erica's done that. So we'll, looks like Beth is joining us. And I capped that at 5. That's on Thursday. And the max is 5. So I think we got 3 now. Privacy opt-out provisions. Well, this would be, Nico, if I want to cross-solicit. It sounds like you had a draw from hell if this is the SIE. But, if I want to cross-solicit you, I need your permission. And then I have to tell you what I'm doing to guard your personal information. So what would a client choose to do? In other words, I was reading where Merrill Lynch is not teaching baby brokers to cold call anymore because they think there's enough business just from Bank of America customers. So what they're teaching Merrill brokers to do is cross-solicit Bank America customers. Now, the point of this rule is that if I'm a Bank America customer, you need my permission to let Merrill brokers cross-solicit me. And then you're in possession of my private information. You got to tell me what you're doing to protect it. Anything you want to add to that, Brian?
The opt-out methods, but I don't think that's SIE.
Well, you got to make it easy. I don't have to send you a certified letter by the 3rd Saturday. It should be point and click. I get aggravated in the real world, Nico, because I've tried to opt out of stuff and it makes me click like 5 times. Erica wants to win the drawing, so that's why she shows up just before the drawing. I'm teasing. Well, anything's a big category. The more particular you can be in your questions, the more helpful we can be. But I truly believe that, the 2 halves of that exam are regulatory and investments. I do think, Matt, the people who miss the mark on 66, I'll let Brian comment, but I think a lot of them have hubris. They pass their 7. They say, well, gee, what can they ask me about investments? I don't know. And they go down there and they miss the mark. So the biggest new thing on the 66 is going to be the regulatory framework. But there are some, investment questions that could be a little challenging. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, the quantitative analysis and securities analysis, the discounted cash flow, internal rate of returns, those sorts of things get a lot of people.
Yeah, and Matt, if you tell me that's why you failed, though, I'm going to say there were other problems. But on my debrief I did with the guy yesterday in his car, he got the dividend discount model not working for preferred stock, which is a pretty standard thing, because remember, the preferred stock dividend doesn't change. So you would use the dividend discount model, not the dividend growth model. So a lot of that math is recognizing the input rather than actually doing the math, right? What is the inputs and the outputs? So, all the following are necessary to calculate future value, except kind of stuff. So I don't know if you were with me on that live stream, Brian. I just think it was hilariously funny and something I totally disagree with. We were doing, Matt, a live stream, and I had said that, the math is not going to make or break you. And I personally am not a big math geek, but I have a guy, Lee, who's made tens of thousands of dollars over the years doing math for me that I don't want to do. And I need the math to be as best as I know it can be done, particularly when it's a banking deal or something like that. And this guy popped in and said, well, then you shouldn't be in our business if you can't do math. And I felt like telling him, listen, I know many, many billionaires that cannot do math. But the good news, they have the resources to hire somebody who can. Yes, Erica, duration is testable. But you're in your 7. It's not testable.
Yeah, not on the 7.
I recall, Erica, you're in your 7. In your 65, 66, it's testable. It's just a fancy word for volatility.
Yep.
Right. So, if you just translate duration to volatility, you'd be, fine. So again, the bond with the longest maturity and the lowest coupon is going to have the highest duration. Now, again, my math geek friends get mad when I oversimplify things, but that's my job. And that's when they get mad is, oh, Dean, that teeter-totter, it's really not a linear relationship. It's got convexity. I go, yeah. Yeah, please don't. I mean, I just, my heart's in the right spot. I'm not a big fan of changing answers.
Nope.
Well, Clyde, we have a free coaching call that we will raffle at the end of this session. That's 30 minutes. We put into our drawing of something, in the chat, and then we draw from it. So that's the way to get a coaching call. Both Brian and I tutor. Brian tutors. He's, I think, a screaming deal. $90, but you can actually buy his courses for almost what he would charge you to tutor you, and you would get the 3 days on video. So I'm not so sure if you'd rather have Brian tutor you or coach you, whatever you want to call that, or just buy his series. iTutor, and you're more than welcome to share that and form a syndicate. I charge $225 an hour, and you would book that on my booking page. You just go to deantenneytutoring.sepmore.com, and you can book tutoring. There's also classes there, Clyde, that are cheaper. You know what I mean by that? The one tomorrow is $60 for advanced options. And there, you can, it's recorded, and you get free repeats, and you can get access. Erica, for example, registered for basic options. I think I charged $45 for it. And she's going to have Thursday a free office hour that's available to her and Beth, and I think somebody else right now. So yeah, that's how you would go about getting coaching or tutoring or whatever you want to call that. Yeah, 1,000% sure. I think, again, 2 parameters. Do you know you got it wrong? Still don't change it. You know what the right answer is. If you can't get yes to both those, then don't change your answer. Now, I would tell you, though, that the other thing I would tell you is that you can have too many voices in your head. So you got to pick a kind of whether it's a geek or a guru or whoever, and go with whatever they tell you, because otherwise you're going to get 6 different people telling you 6 different things. So it's kind of like theology, right? Everybody has a different thing. Now, I would qualify that by saying if Brian and Dean are the same page, it's probably not a bad advice, because we've been doing this many years and helped thousands of people make their mark. So I've now embraced, Jackie. There are people who my haters call me the old dude. I'll take it. If you're trying to, your career's at risk, I think you might want an old dude. You don't want the new guy. So, yeah, 63 is a beast. No, Marcel's telling Erica he's going to get it. Our 2 previous winners. I think Erica, we put Erica's name in the chat. I'm not quite sure she got a real win. She's dedicated, she's disciplined, she's organized, she's working hard. So I kind of threw her a coaching call.
Did you see that point-to-point question there, Dean?
No, I didn't. Where's that?
Just one prior.
Abby, if you're here, by the way, I saw that I missed when I go back and timestamp, I do see that every once in a while I miss something. Where is it at? Point to point?
One prior to the one you're on now.
Okay, let me go here. Boom. Oh, that's very much a test question. Great debrief.
In a long time.
Remember the thing, Zelda, I would defer to you again if you want to add more to the chat. But the thing that shows up all the time is there's no negative reset from point to point, right? So if it's a point-to-point adjustment to that, like let's say the market goes up 20%, I got 100 grand, it's got 90% participation. And you would tell me the reset point-to-point is going to be 118. I think I did that math right. But anyways, then they'll give you another point-to-point and say the market went down 30%, and then you're supposed to say it's still 118. That's why it's not considered a security. So my biggest thing would be to tell you, remember on your 65, 66, on equity indexed annuities, there is no negative reset point from point to point. It's usually a year, but there's no negative reset. Anything you want to add on that, Brian?
No, that's it.
Okay. And then Abby, I don't know if she's here. She probably got mad if you put a question up there and I didn't see it till I was time stamping the replay. So if I miss you and Brian doesn't catch it, again, you can help me by putting that queue in front of it. It makes it easier for me to pull it out. But don't feel, just put it back into the queue. If we miss it, just put it back in there, and maybe we'll get it the next time. What? Well, as we said, confidence, Cynthia's huge. I mean, I think if we can give you confidence, that's points. What do you think? I think it could be as much as 10 points confidence. What do you think, Brian?
Absolutely.
And the sad part, Cynthia, I told you the tough love with that person. I came down pretty hard on them, and I told them they got to get rid of their stinking thinking. Now I don't know how to do that though. I mean, I wish I knew. I'd get a coaching call with Dr. Phil. I don't know, but
Dean, I do the same thing. I come down pretty hard on some folks as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's
off into the Netherlands. I got to bring them back. Yeah. I got an hour and a half tutoring session. I'm not going to sit there and spend 15 minutes. I'm going to tell them, you've got to come back or you're lost. You're gone.
I said, I have a version of that. I say, it's okay to take a mental trip to Tahiti every now and again, but come back quickly.
Exactly.
Particularly like tomorrow if we're doing advanced options. So
there you go.
And every once in a while, I've heard this about Brian and myself. Maybe we get misinterpreted. every once in a while, somebody thinks we're a little too tough on people. What can I tell you? I'm a Marine, so I feel like, it's better to have somebody who's telling you that you got to get out of that mindset.
That's right.
And reset, or you're not gonna make it. Anyways, that's why I told this person. I said, your stinking thinking is putting you at risk. If he or she said, I think I'm going to be defeated. And I said, well, why are you saying that? Why are you even putting that in the universe? I mean, there you go. Perfect debrief. Thanks for all the great debrief. As I say, math is not going to make or break you on the 65, 66. And people go down math rabbit holes. I mean, they go down math rabbit holes and it's not necessary. Yeah, the explications. Everybody loves those explications. So I don't sell them. Brian's Quick Notes, I think, are a good version of that, and they are for sale. And you get it for about $40. So I'm just not set up to sell you those. I just had a guy today, and he was a little bent that he couldn't buy the PDF from me. The problem is I just don't have the logistics to do it. And, I don't want to spend all day trying to send people things. So, but the explanations you can certainly print. I always tell people you should print the test, Series 7 content outline, SIE content outline, 65 test specifications, 66 test specifications, and have those in every study session with you so you can kind of look over, like Past Perfect, for example, and say, is that even on this thing? Is this something I have to deal with? And then Brian's Quick Notes is, I think, of the version of Kaplan's Quick Notes, or what you're watching me do on the video. And he has some practice questions. He has a cheat sheet, I think, that's really great, where you put your name. What I use it for in tutoring is to put the person's name in the box and their firm and then walk them through that. I think, is that $40, Brian, just for the PDF of that?
For PDFs. Just
yeah,
for the
that's a PDF. So we don't want to mislead people. You can get the PDF of the exam for $20. You can get the Quick Notes for $40. All in as $100. But we had a person send us wasn't nasty, but he was like, oh, I gave you $20 and all I got was a PDF of the exam. I go, well, I think that's what you told you we were going to get. So Capita 2. No, it's we're still, Erica, the channel, the outside channel activities are still evolving. So I haven't quite figured out what that looks like, but what that looks like right now is those classes I'm offering. And that's there. And if you take the class, then I told you get access to the office hours, which are free. You also don't have a cap. Tonight's overtime session in the live stream we have after this, a Zoom overtime session. It's capped at 10. And then for Erica, it wouldn't apply because she's, bought a class. So, and, I'm still tinkering with that. And I probably, if I'm going to offer them, I'll probably, every 6 weeks or so. Yeah, well, thank you. We work hard. We work hard. So, what's really great though, it's an emotional payoff, is when people pass their exams. And then I love our industry. If you're poor and you deserve to be rich, our industry is for you. It's a wonderful industry. So that's the other thing I get aggravated with, when people tearing down the securities industry. I have progressive friends, and oh my God, the guy thought Vanguard was like a criminal conspiracy. I said, you're so clueless. Vanguard is owned by its own shareholders. Why would they rip themselves off? I mean, he doesn't even, by the way, he should understand a cooperative. I was trying to walk him through this thing, and at some point you just give up and say, oh, yeah, we're right. I'm engaging in a criminal conspiracy to defraud you of a nickel. If I'm going to do it, it would probably be more than a nickel. March 10th. All right. Woohoo. All right. We're sending you good test energy, man. Sending you good vibes. The Thursday call for the Series 7. There isn't a Thursday call for the Series 7. There's a coaching call that if you win, you can be a part of. And then the coaching call replay is on the channel after Thursday. So there's no such thing as a Thursday Series 7 call. As I said, we do have on the deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, we have Q&As, free Q&A if you are participating in that. And we also have the overtime live stream session. Okay, looks like we're coming down to the drawing. I didn't see C. Hill, so I guess we don't have to worry about him doing it. No, about a method of measuring. Well, it would be based on the participation rate, right? So if I tell you it's got a cap Usually an equity indexed annuity would have a cap of, let's say, 30%. And then it would have a participation rate, maybe it's 80%. And so another potential test question would be to say the market up went 50%, then you got to recognize there's a cap at 30. Or the market went up, whatever, and then, the participation was 80% of that rate. Do you think, Brian, do you know anything about that?
I don't think the question's quite that I know the one you're talking about, but the one that I think she's talking about is simply where they're saying, okay, if it does this, what method is it? And the answer is
point to point. Okay, there we go. There you go. Well, Nico, the biggest advantage is the pass-through of the profits and losses. There is no retained earnings. That could be a good thing or bad thing, but that's the advantage of a direct participation program, is there's a flow through of the profits or losses, meaning the money is only going to be taxed once instead of twice. Or this idea, if I own a corporation makes money, pays taxes. Pays me a dividend, I pay taxes. Money's been taxed twice. If I get a distribution from the partnership isn't paying taxes. The partners are. And the money only gets taxed once. That's why the IRS doesn't like them, right? Brian, you want to add to that?
What's the advantage of being a partner in ownership of the New York Knicks?
There you go. Flow through, right? Flow through. I usually use the Golden State Warriors.
Well,
Brian's got an LLC, right? So, Nico, the LLC doesn't pay taxes. It was their profit or loss. It flows through the members of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. So that's the advantage, is the money is getting taxed once. If Brian set up his enterprise as a corporation, his corporation would make money, pay taxes, pay him a salary, he'd pay taxes, pay him a dividend, he'd pay taxes, right? So, it's a tax advantage. Now, we're not supposed to, Nico, sell it as a tax shelter, but, that's the advantage. All right, looks like I've got a couple more here, and then we'll do our drawing. Well, there you go. I thought that as well. The guy I debriefed yesterday, I thought that was really a difficult option question for 66 about a higher strike put giving greater protection. I wouldn't expect that. Futures, yes. Futures are even easier than options, assuming you've got options down, because you're either going to go long or short. What he got was just, price go up, go long the futures, price goes down, go short the futures. And then he had to close it out and get a profit or loss. So
this question with these 4 answer sets.
Yep.
I have one similar on my final.
I saw that the other day. I did see it. So I think it was, which of the following would not have an obligation or something like that?
Basically, which one is bearish?
There you go.
And those were the 4 answer choices.
Okay. All right. We're ready. So let's get our thing out here.
Please.
Share screen. And let's go get our giveaway tool.
There we go.
And let's get it full screen.
There we go.
And let me choose our broadcast. We are here on February 21st. And let's see. Hashtag, make it overtime for those who are going to join me 15 minutes from now in the overtime session. Okay, so put in the chat overtime. And then we'll do our drawing for the 30-minute free coaching call. And remember, you can give the coaching call to someone else. You can share the coaching call if you like. And you need to claim it within 1 hour of our live stream ending. So send me an email, Dean, I'm the winner. And then I send you the Zoom invite for your Thursday coaching call. It wouldn't be this Thursday. It would be the following Thursday. Anybody else? Looks like we still got some coming in here. Let's get rid of the comment. Whoop. Okay, last call. Anybody else want to enter? Going once. Going twice. All right, here comes the drawing. Boom.
And the winner is
Brady Rogers. Woo! All right. Woo! Let me get rid of that. Get back to Brian and I. Thank you, everybody, for participating this evening. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard.
You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. See you next Tuesday. If you're in the overtime session, I'll see you 15 minutes in Zoom. Bye-bye.